Here are some things you can do that will improve your achievement in mathematics. How many are you already doing? What habits will you develop this year? Which one will you work on this week? Preview lesson material. We frequently need to hear or read something several times before we take it in. Actually, it's often only when we hear the second or third explanation that we suddenly understand it. Aha! One of the simplest things you can do to get more out of your teacher's explanations in class, and to know what questions to ask so you can understand it deeper, is to preview what they're going to say before you get to the lesson. And if you make your notes from the textbook, PowerPoint file or video before you get to class, you can spend your lesson time listening carefully and asking good questions, instead of just writing furiously, or worse, staring out the window because you don't know what to do. But how do you know what your teacher is going to say? Easy. Ask them. Look at the term or unit outline that you've been given. Read the relevant textbook sections. Watch the videos and check out any other links provided by your teacher. Search for videos by other people related to the topic. This last one is especially helpful. Everyone explains ideas differently. If you've already heard one or two explanations before you get to class, your teacher's explanation in class will be the second or third time you hear it, and you'll get a lot more out of it than you would if it was the first time. Hard problems during lessons. Spending most of each lesson copying your teacher's work from the board is not good use of your time. And taking a photo of the board so you don't have to write it also won't help. Don't believe me? How well are these strategies helping you to get top marks right now? There are much better ways. To really learn a skill, you have to practice it again and again and again, in as many different contexts as possible. You need access to help when you get stuck, which means attempting hard problems during lessons when your teacher is right there to help you. If you leave the hard questions until later, when you're at home, you won't have practiced solving problems during the lesson, so you won't know what to do and you'll get stuck. But you can't get help right away, so you'll stop, because you can't do anything harder either. So you won't do the practice you need to actually learn the skill. Remember, you can always check the textbook later, or an online video, if you can't quite remember a formula, procedure or example. But if you haven't failed when you have access to help, you'll only fail later when you don't have access to help. Which would you prefer? You really want to be spending your class time listening carefully, asking questions, and attempting difficult problems, not copying whiteboard work and doing the first 3 basic easy questions. Imagine how productive your lessons could be if you already copied out examples from the textbook and tried the first few questions before you got to class. If you're still worried about taking good notes quickly during lessons, there are some excellent note-taking systems around, and many, like the Cornell system, also include summarising and revising, which we'll talk about next. Pick a system and try it. It doesn't matter which one, they all work better than spending lesson time copying whiteboards verbatim. Learn to use one system well. Practice using it every lesson, for every subject, every time. It will change your life. I mean it. Summarise. If you hear, read or write something once in class and then never look at it again, you will forget it. Don't believe me? What's the difference between a rhombus and a kite? What's the formula for the surface area of a cone? To really learn something, you have to force your brain to reformulate the ideas in your own way. Summarise. Draw mind maps. Explain complex ideas in your own words. Draw diagrams. Create a poster. Make a comic or video. Create something. But you can't do all that in class. And honestly, you don't have time to write detailed notes and summaries in class. You should be spending class time listening, asking questions, and attempting difficult problems. But as soon as you get to a calm, quiet place for study after the lesson, go back over today's content and summarise. Rewrite definitions in your own words. Classify and organise the ideas. Write neat copies of formulas and examples in a summary book. Not every example, just the ones you need to remind you later how to do it. Draw a mind map linking the new ideas to what you learnt yesterday, last week, last term, 2 years ago. The more you can link together, the better you'll remember it. Use the mind map as your table of contents for your summary book. Revise. If you hear, read or write something once in class and then never look at it again, you will forget it. Don't believe me? What's the difference between the subject and the object of a sentence? How do you use trigonometry to calculate an unknown angle? To remember a large number of complex ideas properly at the end of the year, or to be able to still do a skill you learnt several months ago, you have to go back and revisit the ideas again and practice the skills again and again and again. This reinforces the neural pathways in your brain that help you to remember, and eventually you'll be able to do those skills automatically. The ideal revision schedule begins as soon as possible after you first learn something, and then in increasing intervals, the next day, next week, next month, next term. The more often you revisit, and the more recently you last did something, the better you will remember it. The more systematic and self-disciplined you are about keeping to a revision schedule like this, the better you will recall information during your exam. Pick up your summary book every day. Each time, pick a concept you haven't thought about for a while and think back over that idea and all its connections to the rest of what you know. Write the formula without looking at it. Can't do it? You don't know it well enough yet. Try solving the examples you recorded in your summary book without looking at the solutions. Can't do it? You haven't practiced it enough yet. Got more time? Find some relevant harder problems in the textbook. Solve them too. Add to your summary book any new notes or reminders that you needed. The more often you do this, and the more thoroughly you do it, the better you'll remember it all in the exam.